Well, thank you so much for hosting me today. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you a little. What I'd like to do is to share with you some of the things that show up in a book, my new book called The Busy Professor. And if I can talk really fast, I can get all the way through it, and you don't have to spend the $8.95 to buy it. But if I talk so fast, you need review. That's where all that good information is. But where I want to start is with with sort of a philosophical position. So not all of us here are academics or professors or graduate students, but we're all sort of in the thinking business. And what I've learned is that the best thing about being an academic and being a thought leader and having a job where people pay you to think is the amazing flexibility you get to do whatever it is that you want to do. And in particular, you can do that whenever you want, as long as you take about 80 hours a week. So being an academic is something that really is a very time-consuming sort of animal. And most of you have had some success. I mean, we're just talking with Matt, who just started his PhD program. We've got people here from all over the world. So what I want you to think for a moment is, I want you to dream just a little bit. If you wanted to do really advance professionally, what are 3 job-related things that you wish you were doing more of? So take a moment and think about those 3 things. You don't need to share it with anybody. But what are 3 things you'd like to do more of? No, not 5, 3. All right. All right. Well, let's change the question a little bit. Instead of 3, what if there's just one single thing that you could do that if you really focused on, it would progress you professionally? Which one of those is? And what I'd like you to do is to find the chat window, and I'd like you to type in, what is the one thing that you really would like to do more of that would advance you professionally? And I'm going to try to find the chat window. There it is. All right. Go ahead and type in the chat window. What's one thing you really would help you progress professionally if you could do more of? Writing, here, write more papers, research, write more, casual reading, write more time to research, write more, research, writing, research. I'm seeing a real pattern here. And the real pattern I'm seeing here is really focused on doing more writing and publishing. And in order to do more writing and publishing, you need to be able to do more research. If you do more research, then you could do more writing. That's the pattern that I'm seeing here. So let's spend some time talking about how you could find time to do more research, so therefore you could spend more time writing and publishing. All right, that's sort of the consensus of the group. But here's my next question. If you know you need to write more, why aren't you doing it? Well, we sat around and talked for a long time. What we'd find here is most people would just say, I just don't have enough time. So let's spend some time talking about time and how to find time and how to create time that allows you to do more writing, more publishing, and more research to back that up. But the question we have to deal with here is we got to figure out what steals your time. Let me tell you a seemingly unrelated story. So no matter where you are in the world, when it comes time to decide what you're going to have to eat for food tonight, you have a lot of choices. How do you decide what it is that you're going to eat tonight? I mean, you're going to have spaghetti? Are you going to have tiki marsala? Are you going to have curry? Are you going to have meat? Well, how do you decide that? Well, it turns out that although there are millions of things you could choose to eat, when we look at the general population, most people have a very small diet, a very small range of food that they eat. And in general, that food choices we make gets repeated again and again. It's because we have a ritual around food. Maybe you decide that you're going to have lasagna every Tuesday night, or every Saturday night you're going to have chicken curry, whatever. We tend to have a ritual that allows us to do this because we go crazy if we were trying to decide amongst a million choices all the time. Well, the academic's dilemma is the same thing. Many of you are in a job position where you can study anything you want. You could research anything you want. You could read books about anything you want. You could write articles pretty much about anything you wanted to do. How do you decide what to write? And again, Just like with figuring out what you're going to have for food in the evening, this notion of having a ritual seems to help. And people that are very productive with writing have rituals that they use, and they use them consistently. And so what I'm going to suggest here is you need rituals and habits, and you need to be very cognizant and aware of what your rituals and habits are so you can do that one thing that you really, really want to get done. Because if you try to do too many things at once, you're really not going to get anything done. Some of you may have a situation where you've got 5 different papers you're trying to write, and none of them are going anywhere. And the truth is, if you want to get a paper out the door, you've got to focus on that one thing. Because successfully managing your time is keeping the most important thing as the most important thing, and the thing that you spend most of your time on. Because as an academic, you can do anything you want to do, but you can't do everything. You know, we get fooled sometimes into thinking that we can, particularly with technology today. For example, some of you may have Facebook accounts or TikTok accounts or Instagram accounts. Maybe you have 200 friends or 300 friends. Do you really have 300 friends? I mean, 300 friends? Not really. But we can kind of get fooled into this idea that we have 300 people we could call if we ever needed anything. The same thing goes with our academic work. You can submit grant proposals to the national government quite easily, really just with a click of a button. Now, those of you that are my age and older will remember it hasn't always been like this. I mean, I remember when I was a graduate student, my task was to get 15 copies of a proposal and get on an airplane and fly to Washington, D.C. in the United States and submit those proposals. That was my assistantship, was to fly back and forth to the United States, across the United States to submit in proposals. Nowadays, we just click a button. In fact, you can even do 2 proposals. So you've even done 3 meeting proposals, conference proceedings in a single day. It's absolutely crazy what we're able to do now. And the same goes with email. For example, if you're teaching a class and you want to give students a homework assignment, all you got to do is type it up and hit send. No more going to the photocopier and figuring out how many pages it's going to be and having an administrative assistant help you make the photocopies and staple them and collate them and pass them all out. So technology makes us think we can do more than we can really do, but the truth is we really can't. And we get lost in the ability that we have so many things to do. We get lost in it. And so you got to keep your mind on what is most important. Because if you're running around trying to do absolutely everything, you're really going to be unhappy. And if you're a graduate student and you're looking at another 25 years in academia and you feel like I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, it doesn't get any better when you become an assistant professor. Because I remember when I was an assistant professor, I said, if I could just get tenure and be an associate professor, then I could just do what I want to do and I'd have more free time. And you become an associate professor and you know what happens? You still are running around like crazy. Well, if I could just become a full professor, then I'd have all the time to do exactly what I want to do. And you become a full professor, and guess what? You still have a ton of stuff to do. Well, if I could become an endowed chair, then I could do whatever it is I want to do. And it turns out, no, you still have a million opportunities. And if you don't focus on the thing that's the most important, you're going to drive yourself crazy. Academics that are very happy in their job do one thing, and they do it really, really well. So let me see if I can give you an example of where this pulls apart. And I'm going to give you an example from my world from a scientific perspective, but it works in all these cases. So I want you to imagine the following situation. So imagine you're sitting in your office and a student comes by and knocks on the door and they need to talk to you just for a few minutes because they're trying to sort something out because they've got an exam the next day. However, turns out it's 4:15 in the afternoon. And this meeting proposal you're working on is due at 5 o'clock. What do? Think about that for just a moment. So turns out there's a wide variety of possible answers here. Let me tell you what I did. And it was terrible. It was absolutely the wrong thing to do. What I did was I said, if you come back in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I'd be happy to help you, but I've got to get this thing done. If you could just go sit in the hallway for 15 or 20 minutes or 30 minutes or maybe 45. I really need till 5 o'clock. And the student said, well, okay, professor, that's all right. And student went out in the hallway. And so I went back hurriedly trying to type and get this proposal done because I knew I had a student waiting. But I couldn't focus on finishing that proposal because I was worried about a student that was sitting there. So I said, okay, I'm just not going to get this proposal. I was feeling guilty. So I'm not going to get this proposal done. I need to go get this student, and I bring him back in. And the student wasn't happy. I wasn't happy, and it was a disaster. Now, what's the right answer? What should you do? Well, it doesn't matter if you're going to focus on the student or focus on the proposal, but what does matter is if you don't know what you're going to do ahead of time, you're going to do a lousy job. You're going to be really unhappy because you do a lousy job of each thing. So you need to have principles in place about what you're going to do when these sort of things happen. It's like managing your money, right? Some people that are really good with their money and some people that are terrible with their money. And people that are really good with their money know how they spend their money. They know what kinds of things in the world steal their money from them. And they put barriers in place to be sure they don't lose money or they spend too much money. Same goes with your time. People that are really good at time management know how they spend their time. They know what kinds of things distract them, and they put physical things in place to keep them from that happening. So let me show you a quick video clip here.
Hey, dog, what's up? Slater and Company. Oh, hello, Mr. Cat. Your invoice number, hello? Oh, hey, dog, what's up? Yeah, I'm just talking to dog online. Can you hold on a second? Slater and Company.
Whitehead, I need that report.
Yes, sir, I'm just finishing it now. Doggy dog. Hey, dog, what's up?
Whitehead, I need that report.
Dog, gotta go. Sorry. Dog, gotta go. Dog, gotta go. Mrs. Cat. Mrs. Cat? Mrs. Cat?
All right.
Whitehead?
In fact,
There we go. So what you can see here in this humorous clip is that if you have too much information coming to you at once, you're going to get distracted and do a terrible job of everything. And it's particularly true as an academic. You've got classes coming, you've got students coming, you got administrators coming, you've got writing opportunities, you've got presentation proposals you've got to do. Tons and tons of things are coming, but you got to know what steals your time. And maybe it's social media. Maybe it's people coming by your office. You got to know what these things are and put things in place that keep you from doing this. So, So, turns out humans are terrible at multitasking. Let me give you an example. So, my daughter is 14 years old, and I love my daughter. She's fantastic. But when I tell my daughter to go do the dishes and clean the kitchen, she has a very interesting strategy. What she does is she washes one dish, and then she rinses the soap off of it, and then she washes another dish, then rinses the soap off of it, washes another dish, rinses the soap off of it. I keep telling her, what if she would just wash all the dishes and then rinse them all, cleaning the kitchen would go much better. Does she listen to me? Well, no, but she's 14. Of course she doesn't. But it works the same with us. I mean, suppose you're working with an accounting professor. You're working on your own budgets, your own accounting. I mean, do you go get about 10 receipts for 10 minutes and then analyze those receipts, and then go get a bunch of receipts more and analyze those? Or is it more time effective to spend all your time getting all your receipts together and then the next day doing all your analysis? Or if you're grading papers, I have colleagues that'll grade one paper and then they'll go to look at their email, and they'll grade another paper, and then they'll check their social media, then they'll send some email, then they'll grade another paper. It's much better to just turn off your computer and spend an hour and do a good job grading those papers than it does to go in and out. Plus, your grading will be much more consistent. All these things have the same thing in common, and that is when everything should have a time and a place to do it. Only do one thing at a time.
Dear mainland, aloha. We've been hearing about this multitasking you're up to, sitting in a meeting, sending texts about another meeting where you'll send emails about the first meeting. Maybe sometimes you take a little break and do just one thing. Allow my brother and me to demonstrate. Single tasking. One life, right? Don't blow it. Mahalo. Kona Brew.
All right, so let me show you how this would work here. Email seems to be something that really causes problems for us. And if you've always got your email on, it will constantly distract you from what you're trying to do. So I guarantee that if you will just do all of your email in one sitting and then turn it off, you will write more papers. You will publish more papers. So for example, So one of the things I use to do all my email in 1 hour is I dedicate myself to something called Ohio. No, not the state of Ohio in the United States, but it's the acronym OHIO. It stands for Only Handle It Once. If you're going to open an email, deal with it. Never get in the habit of opening an email and say, well, I'm going to answer that later, because you're never going to come back to it, and it'll distract you when you're thinking about other stuff by not responding to that email. Set aside a time you're going to do email and only do it then. So I get 100 emails a day, just like you do. So I set aside time at the end of the day to manage all those emails. And when I open an email, I either delete it, I respond to it in less than 2 minutes, I archive it because, you know, I may need that information from the dean someday. Or if it's going to take more than 2 minutes to answer, then I drag it into a folder, which I call my Friday folder. Now, I deal with my Friday folder more often than just on Fridays, but it's time I know that I need to write more thoughtful responses. Because it turns out the more email you send, the more email you receive. So I was doing a workshop for some faculty, and I said, you know, I promise you, if you send less email, you will receive less email. So how did that work out? So I had a graduate student that actually plotted this out, and what they found was the more email you send, the more email you get. Here's why, right? So imagine you wake up in the morning, you know, it's, you know, I don't know what time in the morning, you're groggy-eyed, and first thing many people do is they reach over and they grab their cell phone and they look at their email real quick while they're still in bed. And maybe they'll have some things they need to reply to. And then they get up and they go to the bathroom and they shave and brush their teeth or whatever they do in the morning. And they go downstairs to the kitchen to get some coffee. And while the coffee's brewing, they get back on their phones because there's already responses to the emails they sent while they were laying in bed that they've got to respond to. So then they respond to those emails, and then they get on their bicycle if you're in Copenhagen, or get on the train and you go to work and you get to campus. But when you get to campus, the first thing you do is you turn on the computer, and then there's a bunch of email there that are responses to the emails you sent while you were drinking coffee, that are responses to the emails that you got when you sent from when you were laying in bed in the morning. And this process continues all day long. Turns out if you only send email once a day, you're going to get far fewer emails. All right, last thing I want to point out here, and then we're going to questions and answers. Email is a terrible to-do list. So the one thing you don't want to do is have a giant email list or giant email box that has hundreds of emails in it, because you're never going to go back to those emails. I know some of you have 100, some of you have 1,000, some of you have 5,000 emails in your inbox. I promise you, you're never going to get to them. You should just take them all and delete them all, or put them all in a folder somewhere, because you're never, ever going to go back. I know you say you're going to, but you never, ever do. So for me, I don't use my email as a to-do list. I use my calendar as a to-do list. So why is this? Well, some of you think it's important to get some exercise, and so you need to go to the gym regularly. How do you do that? Well, you put that in your calendar. Some of you have pets that need to be fed and need to be exercised. How do you know when to do that? Well, you have a ritual. Maybe it's when you first wake up in the morning. Maybe it's in the evenings. You always go find time to play with your pets. Many of you teach classes. How do you find the time to go teach your class? but you don't find the time, it's scheduled and you set that aside. If somebody says, hey, do you want to get a cup of coffee at 11 o'clock? You say, no, I can't. I got to teach class. And they go, okay, well, that makes sense. Well, it works the same with writing. If you want to write more, you've got to schedule a time and stick to it. And you're going to have to put that in your calendar. So you already scheduled time in your calendar for when you're going to teach. I'm suggesting everything has its place. And if you want to write, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to schedule time to write. Because it turns out freedom comes from structure. In other words, if you'd like to be able to go watch your kids play cricket or football in the afternoon, and you're always missing it because you're too busy, that means you got to have a highly structured morning in order to have free time in the afternoon to go do those things. And I organize it by my calendar. So let me just take 2 minutes and describe this. So my calendar is set up as a Sunday through Saturday calendar. And I've simplified it here so you can take a look at the kinds of things that are there. I've got things that are scheduled in there that are always going to be the same. And on my Saturday column, this is where I put things that I need to do this week. Somebody calls me on the phone and says, hey, I need you to review this proposal. Well, I write that down on my Saturday list. And then when I do those things as the week goes on, I drag them into the calendar where they occurred. And this allows me to go back and look at my calendar last week, 2 weeks ago, a month ago, and reflect on how I'm spending my time. Am I doing my one thing? And if I have things I need to do that don't necessarily go into time, I've got on Sundays, I put in the Sunday column is where I put in things that I've done. And things change over the course of the week. But if my to-do list and my Saturday list on Saturday gets too long, then I know when somebody calls and says, hey, could you go to this meeting? If my list is too long, if it fills up the entire Saturday, what I know is I either have to move things into the next Saturday or tell that person no. All right, final thoughts here.
Dear Mainland, aloha. My brother and I wanted to talk to you about your happy hour custom. How come just 1 hour? Maybe you make 1 hour sad hour and the other 23 happy. Now we all got work, but is all that spreadsheet time more important than this time? We know when you should do that spreadsheet. Sad hour.
2 corners.
Thanks, Auntie. One life, right? Don't blow it. Mahalo. Kona Brewing, Kona, Hawaii.
All right. So what I want to do there is, if I can figure out how to do this, stop my screen share and say, okay, there's some hard ideas about how to schedule yourself, about how to make the most important thing. And if you want to write more, you're going to have to put it in your calendar. And this is hard. So for example, I mentioned earlier, you're teaching at 11 o'clock, imagine for a moment. You're teaching at 11, somebody calls and says, hey, do you want to have a cup of coffee at 11? You say, well, I can't, I got to go teach. And they go, okay, no problem. But if somebody calls you, it says, hey, I've got, would you like to get a cup of coffee at 9 o'clock in the morning? And you've got 9 o'clock scheduled for writing. Say, no, I can't at 9 o'clock. That's my writing time. They'll say, oh, come on. That's not a real appointment. You're right. Well, let's go get some coffee. The truth is you need to hold your writing time as a strict appointment, just like you hold your teaching schedule as solid and unmovable. That's how people that write a lot of articles and write a lot of books get stuff done. They may only spend 90 minutes a day in writing, but that's 90 minutes a day where their email is not turned on, their cell phone is not turned on, and they're going to spend 90 minutes, they're going to write 1,000 words, and then the rest of the day, they've done what they needed to do, and they can handle all those requests from the dean or from your advisor, or the kinds of things that just kind of show up. So with that, Visha, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and let's have a discussion. Oh, can't hear you. I hate that pesky mute button. Gets me every time. I can't hear you, Dr. Gupta.
I wonder if he hears you.
I don't know. Dave, I hear you just fine. By the way, Lisa,
Yeah.
where are you? It looks like you're in a
Right now,
Yeah.
it's a little coffee shop in a little horse country village where I live
No
in
way.
Louisiana.
It looks
It's a really
awesome.
cute spot. They have little saddles and stuff everywhere.
Oh my gosh. Can you sit on those saddles and drink your coffee, or do they frown on that?
You know, I haven't tried it, but it's worth a shot.
Unrealized potential.
So I'm not sure
That's
if
great.
Dr. Gupta needs some help.
Yeah,
the
looks like
discussion-
there's a technological glitch maybe happening. And by the way, this is Moshumi Bhattacharya.
Hi, Moshimi.
First, thank you, Tim. I think I'm going to just get it started just because we have so many participants here and time is money. So
Sounds
Tim,
good.
first of all, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It was so simple. Like, I totally agree with, some of the comments that are there in the chat box. This is so simple, but it seems so effective when you actually show us. And actually somebody wanted the videos, which I think is a cool idea. But I think this would be a time to open up to questions, Tim. Is that what you're looking for? So we would be happy to take some questions. And I don't know exactly how Vishal was planning to do that, but I think it's safe to assume that you can just unmute yourself and ask some questions. Is that good, Tim?
Okay, absolutely. Well, I've got there's a bunch of questions and comments over here on the side. One of the questions was, how do we get a copy of the videos? And these are all on YouTube. Just search the Kona Brewing Company, which is a company in Hawaii that makes beer. And fantastic. They have a whole bunch of really, really great commercials. One of the questions that Jonathan asked about was, how do you handle all the administrative stuff that's thrown at you? This is always a tough one. And the best administrators, the president of the university, who's a really, really good one, the provost, if you've got a really good one, they've learned what to ignore. You don't have to respond to every email that comes across your desk. You don't have to respond to everything that's coming. You just got to learn what to ignore, because you're going to be asked to do more things than you can possibly do. And when you're a graduate student, assistant professor, you think you got to do everything. And the truth is you don't. And what I tell folks who I'm mentoring is, you've got 5 things to choose to do right now. It's almost lunchtime. What are you going to do for the next hour? You could go eat. You could go sit in a committee meeting. You could do some teaching preparation, or you could do a literature review. And your priority should always be, what's going to go on my curriculum vitae that's going to move me forward in terms of either the job hunt, or in terms of my performance reviews, or in terms of my annual review, or getting promoted. That's always it. But so that's how you have to prioritize that, because nobody gets a job and nobody gets promoted to full professor because they went to a lot of meetings. Going to meetings don't show up on your curriculum vitae, so they should be avoided like the plague. If you can skip it, do. There's no benefit to it, really, or very little. But one thing that can help is, if you're trying to ignore email, for instance, you don't want to just be dashing off 1-sentence emails, because that looks like you're in a hurry. You want to be cool and collected if you're a really productive professor. So I'm going to turn on my screen here for a minute. I'm going to give you an idea here. Here's the idea. What I hope it says there, and somebody give me the thumbs up. It says pre-write everything. So here's what I do. When I come in the morning and I sit down to do my email, I don't turn on my email. What I do is I open up a notepad and I pre-write an introduction. And I'm going to paste this into every email that I send. Hey, blank, because I'm going to add that person's name. Thanks for sending me an email. Sorry, I'm a little late here. Next time if you want to pass a response, you can always call my cell phone. Turns out this is a great way to cut down on the amount of things you have to do, because people don't like to call you on your cell phone. They would rather send you email. But here I'm instructing them, if you need a fast response, call my email, or call my phone. And then I respond to whatever it is that they need responded to. And then I'll add a third paragraph. something nice. Say, by the way, I thought you did a nice job with your presentation. You did a nice job managing these people, or did a nice job selecting textbooks, because people want to hear something nice. And I do this for pretty much everybody I'm interacting with on that day. They get a nice email from me that takes almost no time. If I've taken 5 minutes to pre-write something, now people are getting a nice, lovely email from me. And I change it up so it's a little bit different every day. And then the most important thing is I sign all my emails NRN, which means no reply necessary. Because think about how much time you waste getting emails that come back say, hey, thanks, or got it, or okay. You don't want those kind of things. They clog up your email box. So there's a strategy on how to manage your email there.
Hi, Tim. I'm back. Can you hear me now?
I sure can.
Sorry about all the confusion there. I had a technical glitch, but we'll go with Alice's question now. Alice.
Oh, thank you. Lovely, beautiful little girl. So I was wondering because we need to build rewards into doing the writing and doing the research, because, it's like delay of gratification. You do things now, but you don't see something published for several years. So the whole process of doing it is so long and drawn out. And what role does giving yourself rewards along the way, to give instant rewards for the work done, rather than, getting that publication 3 years out?
So I've got 2 suggestions for you, and they're very different. The first suggestion is, I have a rule with myself. I don't go down to the coffee machine and get a cup of coffee until I've written 1,000 words. Once I've written 1,000 words, then I have permission to go get coffee. So if I want coffee in the morning, I've got to write those 1,000 words pretty quick, which I can do in about 75 minutes. So that's one way, is to something you like to do, go to lunch, take a walk, get a cup of coffee, say, I'm not going to do that thing until I've done 1,000 words, and 1,000 words then is my reward. Maybe it's after 1,000 words, you get to get on Facebook and check and see what's going on with your friends, or 1,000 words, you get to read the headlines of the local newspaper, or the headlines on some news site. But something that you often do, you say, I'm not going to do it until I've written 1,000 words, and do that every day. There's one suggestion.
Thank you.
A second suggestion that I work with my graduate students who really struggle with this long time horizon thing is, the rule is that we do 3 things with every piece of research that we do. One thing that we do is we do a conference presentation. The second thing we do is we write a professional peer-reviewed article. And the third thing we do is we write a press release for the university on that research. So that everything they do, they get 3 things on their resume for, as well as, some of those things are really fast. Sending a press release to the university for them to send out, they get feedback on that really fast. A conference meeting proposal, they're going to get feedback on that in 4 months or so. And then of course, a published paper, as you mentioned, that takes months, if not years. So by saying we're going to do 3 things with every idea, and that gives them a staggered sort of feedback for it. So there's a short-term thing, 1,000 words a day, get to go read the newspaper. There's a long-term thing. We're going to do 3 things with everything we're writing. In particular with students, if they have to write a paper for one of their classes, then that's a 4th thing, right? Every paper they write turns into a meeting proposal. Every meeting proposal turns into a paper. Every paper turns into a press release.
Thank you, Tim. That was good. Jana, do you want to go next? Jana Reva?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. This is a great presentation. I've read David Allen's Getting Things Done some time ago, and have tried to implement a lot of these same kind of ideas of scheduling things and the 2-minute rule and all this type of stuff. So really good reminders. My question is, I've tried to do this over the years and have never been quite successful with the scheduling of everything. And the reason, there's a couple of reasons. One, I find that there are like the time I allocate to something is never the time it needs. So I dramatically underestimate, I think, how much time something needs. And I struggle with the question of whether or not do I complete it and then move something else off the calendar? So if it's going to take, twice as long as I think, do I stop working on it, only take the time that I allocated to it, and then know I have to revisit it somewhere else? Or do I just complete it? And essentially, like, how do you get better at time estimates and making sure that, you're not just overtaking other things on your calendar?
So, do you remember when you were an undergraduate and you had a term paper that was due at the end of the semester? And so you had the best of intentions. I'm going to work on it this month, and I'm going to do an outline this month. The next month, I'm going to do a draft. And the month after that, I'm going to, get some feedback. When did you end up writing the paper?
Usually right before it was due.
Yeah. So this doesn't change when you become an associate professor or a full professor or the university president. Things take the exact amount of time that you allocate to it. So what I would recommend you do is give yourself what you think the right amount of time is, and you be done with it at that time. You say, this is, wherever I am at 5 p.m. on Friday, that's as far as the paper is going to go. It's particularly true with teaching, because teaching is a wonderful, creative, fantastic activity. You could spend 60 hours a week doing nothing but planning your lectures and giving students grades and thinking about new ways and to bring in ideas and new examples. But you restrict yourself. Say, I can't spend 60 hours a week working on my teaching because I have these other things I have to do. So one of the rules is that in time management, and David Allen from Getting Things Done talks about this as well, is things will take up whatever amount of time you give to them. Just like when you were an undergraduate, same thing happens when you're 50 years old. So you say, this is the time, wherever I am at 5 o'clock on Friday or wherever I'm at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, that's all the time I'm going to give it. So that's one answer. It's unsatisfying. It is terribly unsatisfying. You'd think that life could be different. It's just not. The second thing is I spend a lot of time on my calendar, and if I need an extra hour to do something, then that means I've got to make a choice. Do I stop where I am, or do I move things around? And if your calendar's already full, you've got no room to move things. So having some free space in your calendar is important. It's the same with flying on an airplane, right? So if your flight gets canceled because of bad weather, you try to roll you over to the next flight. But if it's a really busy travel season, that rolling over to the next flight might be 3 days later. So the same thing happens in this case. Sometimes you get stuck, you're going to have to push things back. So having some blank spaces for overflow in your calendar is a good thing to have. But the reality is eventually you do get better at figuring out how long things are going to take, but they're going to take whatever time you give to them. That's why you always get your proposal in on the day it's due. That's why you always get your grades in right before they're due. And it sucks. It's unpleasant. But a rule of life is we take however much time we give to something.
Just to follow up on that, I've tried that several times, and I guess, how do you deal with, because sometimes it really does take longer. Like my grading, for example, I allocate 6 hours, and no matter how fast I move, I really can't do it in 6 hours. And so it's, I would love to do it faster. So, and then there's a beating yourself up kind of process that comes with, like, okay, I literally can't stick to it. So how do you deal with that, like beating yourself up for not being able to stick to the time estimates?
There's not an easy answer to this one. It's tough, and we all do it because we all want to be really, really good at these things. So if I had a similar situation where I said, I've got 6 hours to grade this exam, there's no way I'm saying I'm going to get this done in 6 hours. What I have to do then is I have to say, I'm only going to grade questions 3, 7, and 12. I'm not going to be able to grade the entire thing because I know at the end of 6 hours, I've got to move on to this next thing that is going to be showing up on my curriculum vitae and my performance review. So sometimes you have to cheat the task. Say, I'm not going to be able to smooth out all this language. I'm not going to be able to make the tables perfect. It's going to have to be good enough. And it turns out in many cases in the world, academics really struggle with this. Perfection is not required. So many wonderful things don't get done because we're trying to be perfect. If you can get to 90%, that's going to put you ahead of most other folks. So letting go of that perfection is tough. Not pleasant, was it? That'll teach you to ask that question.
Thanks, Tim. We'll go to Megha next. Megha.
Yeah, am I audible?
You are, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Tim. It's a wonderful presentation. Actually, I'm an early career researcher. I just completed my PhD this year and in the job market. Thank you. I'm in the job market right now while I'm working as an independent research consultant. So the problem with me and many of my fellow PhD scholars is that it's very difficult to say no to a lot of things, whatever it is coming on our way. For example, somebody messages, okay, there's a project, so are you interested? And I say yes. So there's a conference, yes. There is a invited talk, yes. Why not? There is a collaboration for paper, yes, because that's what you see. Okay, you are at the starting of your career and you are building your CV. So everything you see, okay, yes, and you get excited. At the end of the day, you realize, oh God, it's 24 hours, it's so less to even do all of these things, but you are supposed to do because you are at the struggling age, your mindset tells you all those things. So managing the time it creates a lot of issues for me. So I want to know that what's your advice in that case?
So we all struggle from this. And I think Julie Stanton just put in the box here, the ideal is the enemy of good. And another way to phrase that is great ideas constantly get interrupted by good ideas. So what I would say in your position, you'd like to get a job is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
And if I've got two candidates that I'm reviewing for a position, the person who's got the most pages published is going to get the job. So, that becomes your number one priority. Is this collaboration going to take years, or is this collaboration going to get me a paper in the next 6 weeks? And, you're at the point in the career where the number of everybody who just got their PhD is really, really good, and they all look alike. Where you're going to look different is if you've got more publications than the person next to you. And so that's a point in your life where it's just getting pages out the door. And they don't have to be beautiful work, right? You're not an artist and you're not waiting for your muse to come inspire you. You're a house painter. Your job is to put words on the page, just like a painter's job is to put paint on the side of a house. Doesn't have to be beautiful. It has to be correct and it has to be thoughtful. It has to be articulate, but it doesn't have to be inspired poetry. This is not your life's work. I promise you 15 years from now, you will not even remember the articles you were writing this year. So this is not your life's work. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
I noticed that Chandra's written here on the side here. How many words should you write on a day? 1,000 words is all you got to do. 1,000 words a day will get you 200,000 words in a year. 200,000 words, that's a lot of words. So 1,000 is all you need. Your brain dies after 90 minutes anyway. So you really can't say, I'm going to spend the next 4 hours writing, because only your first 90 minutes are any good. Chitra says, I only get productive after 30 or 40 minutes. Is there a way to get productive sooner? Yes, and that's write someplace different. Find some place that's your writing spot. You don't, maybe it's a coffee shop, maybe it's a table in the library, someplace where all you do at that place is write. You don't talk on the phone, you don't do your email, you do nothing else there, but that's your writing spot. You go there to write and you leave when you're done. Many academics struggle with sleeping as well. And part of the reason many academics struggle with sleeping is they've got their phone in their bedroom or they've got a television in their bedroom. Your bedroom is for two things, sleeping and sleeping. And if you try to work in there, then you're going to find your body doesn't want to sleep in there. So never work in your bedroom, for instance. So that's one strategy there to get more productive sooner. You're going there, you're not doing anything else, you're not distracted by anything else. You do your writing and then you leave. That can help you get moving faster.
Thanks, Tim. We have another question from Sadiq. Sadiq.
Hi, Dr. Gupta. Hi, team. Yeah, I actually thought I would not ask. I raised my hand and then I put it down because I was confused. So, Anyway, what I wanted to ask is, in summer, I was kind of really productive. I used to have 2 hour slot at night, like every day writing. But what happened when the class started I'm a second year PhD student. So when the class started, and then I am juggling, like at night, I am saying I will write it in the morning, and I don't get up in the morning. And in the morning, I'm saying, okay, I will do it at night. So the issue probably is I am a little bit afraid of writing. And when you say 1,000 words, I probably write a paragraph in 75 to 90 minutes. This is true. Like a paragraph is kind of an achievement for me to write in 90 minutes. And for me, I have my class papers due end of this month. I was supposed to be in the method section writing. I'm still in the introduction over like from the beginning till now. So what do you suggest for a because our knowledge base is very small right now, if I say, because for writing a paper, I don't know where to stop the reading, and then like reading and writing are connected, right? Because for you, it's more everything, you know, the literature already. For us, we just start like reading a new literature and then 10 to 15 papers. Then I write one paragraph from 10 to 15 papers with only 2 papers cited in it.
So what you're suggesting, or what you're talking about, is very, very common. If we ask people to raise their hands, we're not going to do this. You'd find that half the people in this room are exactly there with that. So I'm going to give you a 3 things. So the first thing is, people study this, so people know who's productive in academia and who's not. And we find that 90% of people who publish a lot of papers write in the early morning hours, before the day gets busy, before you've had to decide, what am I going to wear today? What am I going to have for lunch? Where am I going to park? All those decisions you make cause cognitive, take cognitive energy away from you. So before you even decide what you're going to have for breakfast or what you're going to have for lunch, people that are really productive do their writing early on. And so that's step number 1. Step number 2, and you aren't going to like this at all. Step number 2 is you're trying to do something that most people on the planet have not done, and that's get a PhD. So that means in order to get this PhD, you're going to have to do things that most people don't do. And that might mean that you're going to wake up at 5:45 in the morning and write from 5:45 until 6:30 and then be done with it. Do you want to wake up at 5:45? You do not. But that's something that most people aren't willing to do. If you're willing to do that, you're going to do more than most people will. Just an extra, you set the alarm just a little bit early to do that work before your brain dies. All right, third thing that I would suggest to you, and that is, from a cognitive science point of view, writing and reading happen in 2 different sides of your brain. So if you're trying to read something and then write, and then go back and read something else and write, you're task switching between one side of the brain and the other. And it's not only exhausting, it's not very effective. So what I would suggest is you take your writing time and your reading time and separate into 2 different places. You write for a while. If you don't know what to say, or you don't know what the citation should be, just, write XXX or blah, 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 and come back to it, because later in the day, you can go read those articles and figure out how to fill those holes. But if you're trying to write and have papers open at the same time, you're going to drive yourself crazy, because it happens 2 different sides of your brain, and you lose time. There's a time to type and a time to read, and the 2 don't really go together very much. The last thing I'd say to you is, what you're doing is hard. It is. Brain work is really hard work. And you've got to also have time in your life to not be doing brain work, so your subconscious can work on things. If you're working from 6 a.m. to midnight every day, you're not going to be doing very good stuff, because your brain hasn't had time to process it. Graduate students have got to get over to the gym. They've got to get some exercise. They've got to be, going for a walk for an hour a day. They've got to do something where they're not working, A carpenter, for example, who does woodwork has to stop and sharpen their saw periodically. You do too. Plus, if you work all the time, you're going to be really boring at a cocktail party because you aren't going to have anything interesting to talk about. So you got to, just like you schedule time to go to the gym, schedule your time to play with a pet, schedule your time to write, schedule your time to read. You also need to schedule time to not work and stick to it. People that are really good at schedules, they not only know what time they're going to get up in the morning, they know what time they're going to go to bed, they know what time they're going to arrive at the office, and they know what time they're going to leave campus. And they pre-schedule it out, and then make their work fit into that time, which is kind of what we were talking about earlier. So Oscar asked, are you a morning guy or an evening guy? I am an evening guy for sure. But by the time evening rolls around, my brain is full from all the day's work. So I am far more productive. I don't like it, but I'm far more productive before my wife and kids wake up. Then once they're awake, then my life is a whirlwind of stuff. Because kids got to get to school. That this bill's got to pay. You got to put gasoline in the car. You got to once all that happens, you're not going to be able to think very well. So my best work, I don't like it, happens before my family wakes up.
Tim, we are about 2 minutes away from finish time, and one of our attendees has been awfully quiet, abnormally quiet, Mike Blackwell. So I'll invite him to ask any questions he might have. Mike?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Gupta. I appreciate that so much. I'm so glad that Dr. Slater to be a part of this too. I think it's just great. I've been using some of these to block out more recently to do writing in the morning, and it was working. But sometimes I find that I get off though. Like last week, I had 2 days in a row where for a few hours in the morning, where I had 2, 3, 4 hours in the morning, it was just really productive, really productive. But then now this week, somehow something's happened. I'm still in the same office, but this, I'm still trying to work to get things going out there. What do you recommend as far as being able to work through the highs and the lows, especially get the lows evened out?
I don't know. So I fall off the wagon too. I'll have my alarm set for 5:45, and for 2 weeks I'll get up every day at 5:45 and I'll write. And then I'll miss a day, and then I miss 2 days, I miss 3 days, and I've got to go, oops, back on the wagon. And one of the strategies, and Mariska pointed this out earlier, tracking your progress really helps. So people that are weightlifters, they are religious about writing things down in their book. And the moment they stop writing things down, they fall off the wagon. So tracking your writing progress, either on a spreadsheet of how many words did I write today, or using one of these websites like 750words.com, keeps you more level. You're going to fall off the wagon. It's absolutely true. But tracking your progress is the best way to get back, because you get embarrassed, right? You don't want to go 5 days without writing in your logbook, and that keeps you moving.
Yeah, it's good to get a win that you can jot down every day.
Yep.
Get a win.
That is little wins add up.
Yeah, they do add up. So I have to be more disciplined. But like you said, if you're more disciplined in some areas, then you're more free the rest of the time.
That's exactly right. If you're strict with yourself in the morning, whatever happens in the afternoon and evening, it doesn't bother you because you got your 1,000 words in.
Nice.
Tim, we are on time at 11 a.m. CST, which is noon EST. And I know we asked you for 1 hour of your time. So as we sort of move this towards the end, can folks ask you questions by email or connect with you on social media? Are you able to connect with
you? Bet. Absolutely. Let me see here. Where's the... Here's my... I'm going to put my contact information up here. Please reach out. I'm happy to talk with folks. Let's see here, right there. So you can either just search Tim Slater and I'll show up, or I'm at the University of Wyoming, or my email address is on here. It's timslaterwyo@gmail.com, or you can reach me at info@thebusyprofessor.com on my website as well. So be happy to keep communicating with folks.
On that note, thank you very much for your time, and with that, we'll bring the session to a close.
Thank you all so much. It's a real pleasure meeting you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.